Hi there, my name is Reverend Katsanis Semel. I am an ordained interfaith minister. I'm also a wellness expert and practitioner. I am the founder of cattransformations.com, which is a very progressive health and healing business primarily focused on emotional, mental, and spiritual wellness. I founded this business over 10 years ago, so I've been in private practice now for over a decade. Sure, absolutely. So some of the main services that I offer are angel therapy and angel therapy mediumship. I'd say about 70 to 80% of my current clientele, which includes national and international clients, seek me out for this particular service. I was trained in person and certified by Doreen Virtue, who is the founder of angeltherapy.com and all of the consequential modalities connected to angel therapy. I actually received training in 2007 and then again in 2010, but prior to that I was doing some of this work uncertified on my own, just basically freelancing and experimenting with intuitive counseling, intuitive guidance, and intuitive healing work. I had a mentor. I was fortunate to have a mentor in high school who recognized that I have a gift for intuitive connection, intuitive hearing and seeing, and I was raised in a very religious household to be very humble and modest, but she basically pushed me to recognize that I had this gift from the divine, and in a very loving, kind way forced me to get it out there. So I'm very thankful to her for giving me that nudge and helping me to, start with my dharma, start with my vocation from the time I was really very young, as an undergraduate in college. And then, as I continued on in my early 20s, mid-20s, into my 30s, where I am now, I was able to professionalize it a little bit more with my certifications through Doreen Virtue. I also ended up studying for 3.5 years after I received my master's degree from NYU. I ended up training separately from that to actually become ordained as an interfaith minister through an organization called Celebrating Life Ministries, which does amazing health, healing, wellness work. And I was ordained actually last November, so I'm excited to continue my work as an interfaith minister, not only working individually with people through counseling and prayer work, but also now I'm actually legally certified to officiate weddings in New York City. So I'm excited to continue with, ritual healing work as well. So it's exciting. I also have certifications in various forms of energy healing work, including being a Reiki master and an integrated energy therapy practitioner and master. And that's a lot of fun as well. I'd love to receive more opportunities to do angel therapy connected to energy healing work, as that's a passion of mine as well. Actually, in a nutshell, what inspired me to do what I do was the death of my favorite aunt, my mom's little sister. She actually passed on when I was 14 years old. And I was very blessed and fortunate to inherit her book collection. Some people inherit money when a loved one passes on, and some people, I joke, are even more fortunate because they receive the invaluable gift of receiving books. And so I received lots of knowledge and wisdom from, her name was Robin, from my Aunt Robin's book collection. And she was an amazing healer, very esoteric, but also political. She was actually an emerging massage therapist in the 70s and 80s, actually in Texas. And she was one of the first people to draft legislation in Texas to support people in the political spectrum, to draft legislation in Austin, Texas, which made protocol for massage therapists to go through in order to be certified massage therapists. in the state of Texas. So, prior to that, it was a little bit more of a gray area, and my Aunt Robin was very instrumental in becoming active, not only as a healer, but also an advocate for massage therapists, and making this more of a legally recognized and socially accepted profession. So, I learned a lot about physical healing from some of her books, and though I discerned from a young age that I actually wasn't meant to be a physical healer, I was very inspired by, a lot of the books that I read. She was also into energy healing work, though at that time it was extremely progressive. And I realized that what most fascinated me was spiritual and energy healing work. So that's basically what ignited my inner spark and got me very motivated to pursue this path as a lifelong passion, dharma, calling. So I'm very fortunate to have had this wonderful earth angel in my life. Absolutely. So part of the mission of my business actually is to provide spiritual and emotional wellness tools and resources in a very inclusive way. So I mentioned I was raised in a religious household. I was actually raised in a bicultural and bi-religious, by tradition, household. So my father was born and raised in Greece. And most people, even to this day in Greece, identify as Greek Christian Orthodox. So I was raised with a deep Christian mystical and cultural tradition. And I was also raised, in the same household by my mom, who is a devotee of Paramahansa Yogananda. And Paramahansa Yogananda ji is now known as one of the foremost fathers of yoga in the West. So he came over to the United States in the 20th century and lectured a lot, taught a lot, healed a lot, and founded, an organization that would disperse his teachings and make them accessible and available to the average American. So I was raised both with a yogic perspective and a Christian perspective, gaining knowledge of both quote-unquote Eastern and quote-unquote Western spiritual practices and traditions. So part of my mission is making health, healing, wellness, particularly psycho-emotional health, healing, and wellness, available to people across the religious, cultural, and spiritual spectrum. My mission is to be, as I like to call it, radically inclusive. And then on top of that, what I recognized over 10 years ago, now it's, gotten a little bit more widely socially acceptable. But at the time, what I recognized was that even in inclusive houses of worship or spiritual organizations, there still wasn't really an active pull to largely accept, embrace, allow in people who identify as LGBT or LGBTQ, which would be lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, or transsexual people, and their allies as well. And so what I recognized was this real lack of integration, both, with acceptance and also just letting people know that they were, safe and welcomed and that they were wanted. And I just felt like, whenever there's a need and someone can identify where as humanity we're lacking and you can work to fulfill that need, one can work to fulfill that need, then success is imminent because, it's really in the highest sense about supply and demand, right? I mean, I saw that there was a need there was a demand for it, there was a request for it in the collective consciousness, the collective energy sphere, so to speak. And I thought, this is risky and I might lose business over this or I might receive ridicule, but I'm just going to put my business out there as LGBTQ friendly and make sure that people know that, they can receive, counseling, coaching from me, support from me, even if they can't necessarily receive it from their rabbi or pastor, preacher, minister, imam, any of the above. And I just wanted to really make that message vocal. So again, part of the message of my business and the mission of it is to continue to be radically inclusive and accept people regardless of their culture, their age, their background, their sexuality, their gender identification or preference, and be that face that I'd like to see in the world that's saying you're welcome and you're wanted. So that's a large part of why I'm here. Sure. So I think part of what is unique about what I offer is the way that I'm offering it. A lot of times people are scared to seek out any form of spiritual help, coaching, or counseling because they're concerned that it might be really deep and serious, dark and heavy. And it is true that there are some issues that come to surface that can be pretty intense. But I do my best to do it in a lighthearted way that brings humor, joy, and levity to the process. So I feel that that's part of my strength, along with having a sense of inclusivity and open heart, open door policy. What I would also say is unique about the work that I do is the sense that I want people to know that even if they feel that they've been rejected or not included by other spiritual leaders or spiritual figures who they have attempted to connect with in the past, that I'm offering this uniquely direct invitation to connect. So I think that that is part of the uniqueness of my work, and I hope to see that grow in the coming decades. Sometimes I laugh because I tell my spouse, the majority of my clientele is still straight, but maybe I'll get the word out, continuing to get the word out both to, heterosexual people and everyone in between, because, I think sometimes people who have faced minority stress, whether that's more about their culture, their religion, their ethnicity, their race, any of the above, or sexuality, there's something that psychologists now term as minority stress. And minority stress is just dealing with the simple fact that, you're not in the majority, that there's kind of a sociological disadvantage. And then, of course, compounded, with general stress and not feeling necessarily like you're in the position of historical power, would be the simple fact that there's discrimination, and sometimes you may not even feel safe to be yourself. So I'm hoping that the more I, put my message out there, even people who have dealt and or are still dealing with a lot of minority stress will still feel compelled to feel worthy enough to reach out and seek the support that they need, part of knowing that it's okay to get help and, receive human connection is on a deep level feeling worthy of doing so. And I think that part of minority stress is internalizing messages of unworthiness, lack, or shame. And so part of my job, as I see it, part of my spiritual calling, if you will, is to help people to undo those messages and those internalized messages and support people in feeling good enough, okay enough, worthy enough, as I mentioned, to have a sense of connection through mentorship and through emotional and spiritual help. Absolutely. I would be very glad to. Thank you for asking. So one success story that I have recently been watching unfold, which to me is an enormous success, is there were two family members whose sibling, I'll keep this broad for their privacy, but whose sibling, a young sibling, recently committed suicide, and fortunately they found out about me through a friend of a friend and, sought me out for counseling and support, as well as doing some energy work to support them through the shock and the grief on the energetic level as well as physical. And to me, part of the success is that one of the siblings has continued up with the work, not only seeing me once or twice, as some people do, and that's fine, just to come in for a tune-up and leave feeling better and then continue to deal with life to the best of one's ability. But one success for me is that one of the two siblings has continued with regular sessions, and it just means a lot to me to be able to support this individual in these extremely intimate processes, which, some people feel reluctant to share with someone who, begins as a stranger, which is totally and entirely understandable. So to me, this is a major success that, these two siblings reached out to receive support and they felt comfortable enough with me to continue, and that one of them is continuing, with ongoing treatment and support. That just makes me feel really good. So. Absolutely. It's kattransformations.com. And I'm going to spell that out as that's a little bit tricky. It's K-A-T, so my first name, Kat, K-A-T, and then the word transformations, plural. So transformation with an S on the end, .com.